Testing, one, two, three.
Hi, Fred. You sound good.
Oh, it's coming through. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. No, it's coming through fine. This is Rana.
I was having a problem. Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, Fred.
How are you doing?
Hey, pretty good.
That's always good to hear.
Yeah. So the big issue for me is who's going to show up from the commission? What about Cloverdale? What about the 2 county appointees? What
Yeah.
about Rohnert Park?
Well, Barbara got reappointed.
Oh, she did. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because she was real worried about that.
Oh, God. Yeah, she
And pull it
was.
down off the ceiling.
The politics.
Yeah, well, she thought the city manager didn't like her.
Yeah, well, but it was a unanimous vote to reappoint her.
Great.
So she's happy.
Good.
And
One
they
less-
had
One less problem.
yeah. And she had a good trip with her, Jake, in Scotland and England, and I'll let her tell you all the stories.
Yeah.
She gets on, but it was sounds like it was a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Rachel. Are you signed in?
Hi there, Fred. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, pretty good.
Hey, Rachel.
Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, good.
Good.
Hey, Paul.
Hi,
Oh,
bee lady Rachel.
Oh yeah, I have on my my
Oh.
bee necklace from Greece.
Oh, really? That's great. Fred,
Yeah.
David,
Elena,
how you do? How you guys doing?
good. Hi, Paul.
Good. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Hi,
Now,
everyone. I'm Elena Pacheco. I'm filling in for Jeff today. I'm another attorney from Chronic, so I'll be here as your general counsel.
Hello, Elena.
hey,
Hi, Elena.
Hi.
Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Paul. Hi, Elena. Hi, everybody. I can't see everybody yet, but anyway, greetings.
I don't know if
So-
you remember, but when you got back, we're supposed to have lunch. So, Barbara,
Oh,
that
Thank
was a
you.
long time ago when we said that, but
it was
let me just
many
say for,
moons.
for those
Many-
assembled, 4 more years. 4 more years.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can remember 8 years ago, my first meeting.
Yeah.
Seems like an eternity. We were all down at Santa Rosa City Hall.
Yep. Good evening.
Hi there.
Hi, Deborah.
What are you doing? Let's see.
Looking forward to next week. It's a pretty good agenda they've got for that
For
foundation.
the United Virtual Conference, yeah, it should be. $5:59. Let's see, are we all here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Is Tom with us or is he on vacation?
He's here.
No, there he is.
Hi, Tom.
Hello.
Paul, I'm not, there he is. There's Paul too. I think we're all here. All right, got the
Chair.
record on.
Chair Doyle, I'm
Yes.
not seeing Andy Elkind yet.
That's true. All right, we'll give Andy a minute or two.
Okay, and I'll send him.
Thank you.
He's connecting right now.
There we go. I'm gonna turn this fan off. Good evening, Andy. All right, we're going to get started. Welcome to the Sonoma County Library August meeting. Did I say commission? Sonoma County Library Commission August meeting. This meeting is being held via teleconference pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E1A and in compliance with the Brown Act. And welcome all. So we are going to be pursuant to the same code. We're going to be taking all the votes during this meeting by roll call, but why don't I take the roll right now? Commissioner Cahill.
Here.
Commissioner Elkin.
Here.
Commissioner Ingbarth.
Here.
Commissioner Heavenridge.
Here.
Commissioner Hauser.
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Here.
Welcome home. Commissioner Parker.
Here.
And we are missing 3. We do not have appointments from Sonoma County or the joint Santa Rosa, Sonoma County or Cloverdale. So we are still down 3, but we're working on trying to be persuasive to add commissioners. All right. Lisa, do we have any members of the public with us? I know we have a couple of comments for other.
We have some people that are going to be presenting. I'm not seeing anybody from the public.
Okay. All right, then we will move on, but we're also, there's a change in the agenda. We are going to be hearing about the ADA transition plan, but we are not going to be asked to accept that plan, nor will we be asked to accept the facilities master plan. So we are not going to, so in effect, item 10 is removed from the agenda. And partly that is because we listened to the, we've reviewed the facilities master plan several months ago, and subsequently, circumstances in Windsor have changed, and so some of the language in the report is not accurate. So we don't want to present it with inaccurate information in it. So we're going to edit that and then present it at a later date. So so with that, we are going to ask for the resolution that allows us to meet by teleconference. Do I have a move to?
I'll move.
So moved.
Thank you. I heard a first, second, third, fourth.
I'll chime in too.
Overwhelmed.
All right, but I still have to take the roll. So Commissioner Cahill.
Yes.
Commissioner Elkin.
Yes.
Commissioner Ingbarth.
Yes.
Commissioner Heavenridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes.
Commissioner Parker.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, and with that, we will move into the presentation about Northwest Santa Rosa Library. We look forward to seeing this.
Hey guys, I'm going to share my screen if that is okay.
And do tell us who you are.
Oh, I am Anna from the Northwest branch of the library, the branch manager.
Thank you.
Here, we'll go present. All right, can you guys all see that okay?
Yeah.
Great. Trying to move the people out of the way here. Okay, so yeah, my name is Anna Daw, and I'm the branch manager of the Northwest branch of the library. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. I have worked for the library for 15 years now. It's hard to believe. Most of those years I was a children's librarian, but then the last 5 years I've been a supervisor, branch manager, and started working at Northwest in November of last year. So here is our staff. We got Kim Papanak, the children's librarian there with Pete the cat, Melissa Carroll with Naruto, the teen services librarian. Philip McGo is our newest staff member and the adult services librarian coming to us from Central. And then Nancy Kurtz there hiding behind the book is our library associate. And then over here we have Kevin Whitehead, Rocio Linares, Kathy Signorelli, Michelle Chelly, and Ryan Block is our shelver. And we have one vacant spot, a half-time library specialist that we'll be putting out a call for soon, along with a part-time library associate and a part-time librarian for the upcoming Sunday hours. And then over on the right here is our security guard, Crystal. We greatly appreciate her help in the branch. The patrons and the rest of the staff really do like her and appreciate her presence. And then here's Jonathan, the facilities guy who is assigned to our branch. We really appreciate his positive attitude and really all the work that he does for us in our branch, along with the rest of the facilities as well. All right, and let's see. The Northwest branch is a little under 8,000 square feet, but it's full of natural light. And we are located in a corner of the Cottingtown Shopping Center parking lot. So people can visit the library and get some shopping done all at the same time. And it helps that there's lots of free parking there. We don't have a forum room, so that makes it hard to plan programs sometimes, but we do have a lot of space around the library, some nice landscaping. The Friends of the Library are a valuable asset to us, and all of their hard work and dedication has really helped support the Santa Rosa libraries, and including Northwest, and they have given thousands of dollars to help support, enhance our collections and to support our events and outreach efforts. They keep a little well-stocked book cart for us here, and we wheel it outside every morning, and it's very popular. The Santa Rosa Library Advisory Board has 8 members, including 2 youth members, but right now those 2 youth member positions are vacant, along with 2 regular member positions as well. But those members that are there are dedicated and engaged, which is nice. All right, some demographics. I'll start with saying that these demographics are from Savannah, which is our internal software program we use, and the US Census Bureau. But on the one side here, you can see the map of active Northwest Library Card users. And as of July 11th, there was about 7,500 people who have used their card within the last year. That's the definition of active card holder. And this is a layered map, so it's a little hard to see, but there's a little orange circle with a book in it, and that's Northwest. It's kind of down there towards the bottom of the cluster. And all the little circles that have what looks like a circus tent in them, those are our the schools that are in our service area. There's 14 of them. And then the little purple circles with the books in them that are to the bottom and to the right of that image, those are the other Santa Rosa libraries. And because we have the 4 branches here, there is a lot of crossover, so it's difficult to determine specific details on the demographics, but I kind of use this zip code map that you can see over on the right. That's 95403. It closely matches our group of people that use our library. And the population of that zip code is 45,587, which coincidentally is about a quarter of the Santa Rosa population. And this area, and Santa Rosa as a whole, as a matter of fact, is about 30% Hispanic or Latino, and almost 30% of Santa Rosa households speak Spanish in their home. And if you look at just the school age kids, that number jumps to 54%. 54% of the students in Santa Rosa public schools are Hispanic or Latino. We're pretty grateful that we have 2 of our specialists are fluent in Spanish, as well as our children's and our teen librarians, and they use their skills every day. to help meet the needs of our Spanish speaking population. And I was looking at old or previous reports, and everybody was always reporting on the student one card. So I just thought I would add it in there, and that it's 100% now. So all of the students in Santa Rosa Public City Schools have access to the library through the Student One program. All right. With this slide, I wanted to compare how we were doing before the pandemic, how we have done throughout, and how we're doing now, hopefully coming out of it, although we are still obviously not out of it. As you can see, using some of our standard benchmarks, we are moving in the right direction, but not at pre-pandemic numbers. And this data is from a variety of sources, including stats that are regularly kept by the IT department, Horizon reports, and SendSource, which is the program that we use for patron counting. And then I did want to explain these numbers a little bit because they're counted a little bit differently. The circulation and public internet use numbers are fiscal year. So those that data is done and over, and we're moving on to the next stage. So that's current and complete and accurate. And you can see that we own here about 41,800 items. And for last fiscal year, we circulated an average of 16,500 items per month. The patron count is calendar year, and the current calendar year 2022, I did an estimate of about 7,000 patrons per month. So that's an estimate. It could possibly go up. The Wi-Fi usage is also a calendar year, and it's only year to date. So that's actually on track. I think a lot more people realize we have Wi-Fi. They're bringing in their own devices and connecting to our Wi-Fi and sitting in the parking lot to use it. And then also I wanted to add here some statistics that are not on the slides, because in preparing for this report, I was focusing a lot on Northwest in particular, obviously, but I think it warrants taking a step back and looking at how the pandemic has really forced us to make some serious changes so we could offer services to our community. And so in light of that, I just wanted to point out in pre-pandemic, virtual events were not a thing. We didn't keep track of them. We didn't do them. We didn't offer them. And in the middle of the pandemic, fiscal year 2021, over 11,000 people participated in our real-time virtual events, and almost 13,000 viewed recorded events. The other thing that has grown quite a bit, and I'm sure you've already heard these statistics, but are our ebooks and our digital resources. Pre-pandemic, we were circulating about 900,000 digital items, and that number has grown by 100,000 each year since then. So fiscal year 21-22, we circulated over 1,200,000 digital items. And then back to the branch, the very basics. Pre-pandemic at Northwest in June of 2019, we created 187 new cards. This last June that just passed, 2022, we created 193 new cards. So I really feel like people are wanting and needing our services, and we are providing them, and they're just using the library differently for now. And that may change as we come even further out of the pandemic, I hope. All right, next slide. All right, we just recently started offering in-branch programs, and we started with our popular Read to a Dog in April, which is very popular. And we started offering one-on-one tech help mid-July, and we're planning on ramping it up in the fall with weekly events for teens, bilingual family story time, homework help, and along with some of the many great system-wide events that were put together by our events team. So while it's been a slow process to bring programming back into the branch, both Kim and Melissa have been busy providing many events outside the library and via Zoom, hosting Head Start graduations via Zoom, providing bilingual story times at Bibliobox events, presenting to ESL students via Zoom in Spanish, and helping host the Sonoma County Queer Prom, And also we are accepting teen volunteers again. Philip, our adult librarian, started our one-on-one tech and is looking forward to doing more programming and outreach in the near future. And go. These are just a few of the photos of the outside area of the library where we may be able to offer events. In the past, we blocked off the parking lot to provide large-scale events. And we have been talking about maybe putting up a canopy near our flagpole. And also, you can only sort of see it in this picture, but we just had our bike repair station put in. So that's exciting. We're hoping that people will take advantage of that. Let's see, we don't obviously have a forum room, but we do have all of this great land and around the library that maybe one day we can use as dedicated space for programming. And then also we have been in some conversations with Coddingtown management about offering some programming there. So anyway, it's been really fun to think about all the possibilities. And that is it. Any questions?
Any questions for Anna?
Very good report.
I heard something.
Barbara McKenzie has her hand raised.
I'm sorry. Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, thank you, Anna. That was a really comprehensive report. I really appreciate it. I had some questions here, actually a lot of questions. I'll try to concentrate a couple of, more important ones. There was really a very stunning drop in circulation that you pointed out during COVID. And you also pointed out the increased use of e-resources. So just to be clear, this drop all the way down from 38,000 down to 20,000 includes e-resources, correct?
The circulation?
Yeah.
Those numbers are just for the physical items.
Oh, it is. Okay. Great.
Those
That
I
makes
got
me
from,
feel-
from Horizon.
That makes me feel a lot better. Okay.
Mhm.
And then I was there when you had the, well, I guess you weren't there, but the reopening after the refurbishment really made it a really nice looking facility. I noticed there was something about that mural, that very unique mural that you have in the children's area.
Mhm.
Could you tell everybody about that? Because it's something special. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, there was,
specifically.
I can't remember the woman's name, but there was a woman who was a children's librarian here years ago that was a very dedicated children's librarian, and she worked here for many years. She passed away unexpectedly, and the mural is in her honor. And I don't have all the details memorized, but there's articles and stuff about it that I could forward to you if you would like.
Yeah, I remember talking to the artist. So anyway, thank you for that. I know it's just a really an outstanding feature of your
Yes,
branch.
it is. It's beautiful.
And just real quickly, I was pleased to see your security guard in your presentation. I wondered if you could tell us how much, where she is during the day and how much time she spends there.
She works here. She is here every hour that we are open.
Okay.
And she sits by the front door and greets people, and she does her rounds. She walks around. She helps out by cleaning, she'll pick up trash off the floor. She'll pick up stuff around the outside of the building. People as they're coming in will ask her questions too, and she can say, oh, there's, go ask at the reference desk, or the bathrooms are right there. Yeah, she's great.
And have you noticed a change in behavior or situations since she's been there?
Well, we've always had, well, not always, but since I've been here, we've had a security guard. So I don't know what it was like before.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Anyway, appreciate your presentation.
Yeah.
Commissioner Elkins?
Thank you. Anna, thanks very much for the presentation. I had a couple of questions, I think, as follow-up to what Barbara asked. First, in relation to the security guard, I was just curious, had there been any specific incidents or events that led to the hiring of a full-time security guard at Northwest?
I will start by saying that happened before I started working here, but I think that here as well, as similar as it is to Central, there's a lot of unhoused people that live around here. So in the branch, we have a high percentage of people who come in who are unhoused and who have potentially mental health issues or drug abuse issues. So it's really just a behavior thing for the security guard, and she's like backup for us.
Well, I'm glad that she's working out well and is such a valued member of your team. And I did have one question. I don't know if it's possible for you to flip back to the page that had the 4 charts. 2 of them were fiscal year and 2 of them were calendar year.
Yes. Oh, wait, too far.
That was the one. You just passed by it. Yeah. So I noticed that Wi-Fi usage, it says year to date. I'm assuming that patron count is also year to date, right? For calendar year.
Yeah, so the patron count is it's not year to date. It's the entire year, but it's an estimate on the first 6 months. The first 6 months of the year, we had an average of 7,000 patrons per. And so I just doubled that.
All right. So it's not year to date. It is what you expect to have year end.
Well, I would expect it to be a little higher than that, but but yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Anna? I have one, and it may be from out of left field, but because there are several Santa Rosa branches, do you all work together on citywide campaigns or citywide projects or something like that?
It's funny you should ask that. We were just talking about that today.
Oh.
So we are all pretty new at our branches, all the managers. So we actually met with Sarah today, so we could just kind of be all on the same page about a few different things. And one of the things that came up was maybe we should meet regularly to do exactly that. So it's on the radar.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Terrific presentation, and you hold such an interesting space in the town. I think that people are delighted to suddenly see the library, when they're on commercial expeditions. So that's really terrific. Thanks very much for all you do, and thanks to your staff.
All right, thank you.
Oh, Commissioner Ringbarth.
Oh no, I was just raising my hand. Applause.
Oh, okay.
Very nice, very nice.
Fabulous. Okay, thanks. And then I'd like to invite Erica, and in your new role, congratulations. Let's welcome Erica as our interim director. If you could introduce us to the gentleman who is going to be walking us through the Bureau Veritas piece, that would be great.
Of course. So tonight we have project engineer Matthew Anderson from Bureau Veritas. He will be doing a presentation on the ADA transition plan summary.
Yes, and I'm going to share my screen. Yeah, again, I'm Matthew Anderson. I'm an architect, not an engineer.
Oh, sorry.
From the case of what we're doing here, though, that doesn't really make any difference. What we're really looking at is this ADA transition plan, and I will be talking about it. Feel free to ask questions. I'm not sure I can see everybody's hand. I think it brings the hands up to the top of the list that I'm seeing if you do have a question. So it doesn't have to be a linear presentation. I know this is a complicated issue, and it's expensive, and there may be competing needs for various libraries and funding. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them as they're occurring. But what we're going to talk about is a little bit on the accessibility regulations, what a transition plan is for the library system, and then talk a little bit about the planning process that's already been going on, because there's been a lot of behind the scenes action to get us to the point now where we can get public comment. And then time for questions and answers of the public if they want to ask questions, or if board members have additional questions. to talk about the accessibility regulations. There is the Americans with Disabilities Act. There is also the California State Building Code, and they both apply to the libraries and to the site around the libraries. Essentially, you want someone to be able to walk from the public street, public sidewalks, onto the library site, go into the library, and use the facilities. And so we've worked with the library staff. We had people over the last year with lots of measuring devices to measure all the rooms and the spaces and the doors. And so what we've created is a transition plan that's based on physical measuring of the buildings and all the facilities. You've probably heard of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or it's abbreviated ADA. And that's really what sets this process. And there are a set of guidelines that are administered by the Department of Justice. And they're also, in some cases, enforced by complaints. Because if someone complains and the library doesn't do anything, they can go to the Justice Department because it was written as civil rights legislation. So the purpose of what we're doing here is to be able to have the libraries in a situation where there won't be complaints or there won't be interaction with the Department of Justice. The ADA started in 1990 when the Code of Federal Regulations adopted certain standards, and they became effective in 1991. There have been changes over the years to those standards, and there have been court interpretations, because as with any law, you can take something two ways, and the courts have, in some cases, decided what the wording means. And so an answer you got 15 years ago might not be the same as today because of recent court cases. There was also a set of amendments to the guidelines published in 2010 that took effect in 2012. So you could have a facility that complied in 2009, and now it doesn't comply because of those that work that went into the 2010 standards. And what we've done is what is called a Title II analysis, or of there's 5 titles in the ADA. Title I would be the employment, or the employees, and how you hire people and whether you discriminate against people. And that's not something we've looked at. We looked at the public accommodations, which is Title II. You don't have any Title III, which would be retail facilities. If you had a Starbucks in your library and the Starbucks was a separate lease, they would become a Title III. But what you have is library buildings that don't have retail stores in them. And you don't really do telecommunications, or we didn't study that. We were just studying the physical buildings for the Title II assessment. And public agencies are required to comply with the ADA since those standards that we talked about went into effect. But you also have to comply with the building code if you're doing a renovation project. So if you
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Can I stop you? And can
Sure.
you go to the last slide, please?
Yes.
The public accommodations and commercial facilities, just because I think this is a question that the public might want to know. If some of our libraries have friends sales, and friends of the libraries are separate 501c3s, and they have, they're selling books and they have a bookstore, and that would not qualify as a commercial facility.
No, because it depends on if they had a section of the library that they were leasing and had physical possession of, then that might be considered a commercial facility. But if they're just doing a book sale in your facility, or if they go to the Veterans Hall to have their book sale every year, then that's something that the Veterans Hall is responsible for wheelchair accessibility to that function when they sell at the Veterans Hall.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And it is complicated, and so there are a lot of different interpretations, and it's an ongoing living document process, as we'll talk about later. And there will be a new edition of the California Building Code that comes out this year, and so there may be some slight changes in that, but those would only apply to new construction. So if you're doing a renovation, you have to comply with the current California Building Code. And your architects will know how to do that, and that shouldn't be a problem for the library because that would be in their construction drawings. Just in terms of the scope of the regulations, it does cover parking and drop-off areas. And it's not just people that have a physical problem. It's also people that people that have if there's a visual impairment, or if they have to walk or they need a cane to walk, things like that. It covers all of that. And it also covers even the frail elderly. My mom has trouble stepping up over a 6-inch curb with her cane. And so we look to not have 6-inch curbs on the walking path to get to the facilities. It does include recreation. If you had a playground outside on the library site, that would be covered. If you build a new playground, that would have to be covered under the California Building Code and the ADA. And it does include restrooms. And if you provide communications facilities like the TTY or public telephones, they have to be accessible. And then also programs have to be accessible. As you said, if there's a library book sale, you can have 2 programs going on in different places, and one of them has to be accessible so that you have equivalent facilities for all the library's users. So that if you had a book sale going on in 2 parts of the library and one was up a couple stairs, but books were for sale in the other area, then you're granting accessibility to someone in that area that is accessible. Or if you have 4 bathrooms in a library, 2 of them can be accessible and 2 not, as long as you have signage pointing patrons to the 2 accessible bathrooms. And then reoccurring programs, they should be accessible or in an accessible location. And then just this is, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but this is the type of things that we were looking at as we did the studies. And it does include signage. It includes fire alarms that go off as a light for people that are hearing impaired. It includes, anyway, it just includes all of the facilities, and it includes areas that employees work and the general public doesn't have access to, because if an employee has a disability, you need to make reasonable accommodations for that employee. And so if they're working on the upstairs level of the Santa Rosa main library, you have to be able to have a way for them to take the elevators around and get up to that level. But that's on an as requested basis. So then the main focus tonight, after I've given this some background on the laws, is the transition plan that's been developed. And that's really a guide for the board and the library to go from the current situation where there are some accessible areas and some that are not fully accessible, to, over the course of a number of years, have all the library facilities fully accessible. And so this is setting up a plan that we'll talk about that's based on how many people use the libraries, what functions take place in them, and even what construction work is already scheduled. I think from the time we did this, some of the work at Petaluma has already been completed. And this is sort of a roadmap of the work that we've done, where we did an accessibility evaluation of the buildings themselves, the sites. We talked with staff about who uses the buildings. We went through a prioritization process, looking at the total number of users, and also looking at the master plan process of which libraries are going to be updated because of the physical condition, and came up with a prioritization plan. And at this point, it's a draft pending the board's review and public comment. We're in the middle of a 30-day public comment period. And after those comments are received, then they can be considered by the board and either adopted or not adopted, or the plan can be altered if needed. And then the board would vote on adopting the plan. And then once it's adopted, then you have a legal defense. If someone says, well, we want to make the Santa Rosa branch fully accessible and you should do that, you can point to the transition plan and say, we're going to do that. It's a liability situation where you're not liable to have that done tomorrow because it's in your transition plan for phase 4. And so it's a risk mitigation, or having this transition plan allows you to take comments or complaints under consideration, but you don't have to take action right away. So I see a question.
Commissioner Ingbarth.
Yeah. But you're on mute. Yeah.
from meetings to meetings all day, and I keep turning this off and on. Our buildings, I don't know if it's been discussed with your team, but the buildings that the library occupied are owned by the JPA partners, which are the cities. Like, for example, in Sebastopol, it would be the city of Sebastopol, and they're actually the ones who constructed, and we're in those buildings in the position of a lessee, as opposed to the owner. And I'm wondering, if we're talking about responsibility and liability and developing a plan, how does that work under those circumstances? Because it would seem that the cities would have to, as the owners of the building, would have to be involved in approving the plan to make it effective. It also would seem that it's their buildings, that they have a responsibility for actually making the plan work. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, we did talk about that with the staff during the process, and we
great.
divided the work out in when we did the assessments. There's an exterior section and an interior section, because a lot of your exteriors are the responsibility of the city to it's their responsibility. So you can, within this plan, discuss with, and I think that discussion's already going on with Petaluma about making some exterior improvements that the city is responsible for. And so we did look at that. It really comes down to how each individual lease is written. And I'll get to your question in a minute, Dave, but each lease should define who's responsible for the ADA, and they may not at the current point from what discussions we were having at least 6 months ago. But from a liability standpoint, anybody can be sued, and the courts can distribute liability to the library or the building owner. And it really gets back to how your lease is written. And the plan here would be to identify all of the problems. And if the library believes that, that part of the building is the responsibility of the city, then those discussions can take place within this transition plan of who's paying for what and what the timing would be.
Great,
So,
thanks
Dave,
a lot.
You have a question, Dave? He disappeared from my screen now. I'm not seeing him.
He did.
Dave, you're muted.
I was muted. Sorry. Thank
Sorry.
you, Fred. That was a great question. I was just going to echo what you were saying, Matthew. The commission gets to approve a final transition plan after we've had these conversations with the cities and who's going to do what and when. And like Matthew was saying, it's a little fluid now, and we can change. It's not written in stone yet, and this whole process is initiating all those conversations. They're already starting to happen. So there's conversations happening with Windsor, Petaluma, etc.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Yeah,
And we assume your commissioners are going to be involved also in those conversations.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Commissioner McKenzie, you've got a question or a comment.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm a little kind of surprised about this whole thing. So some of the JPA partners have been in conversations and know about this, and others don't, or where are we in that?
I can take that, Barbara. All of our partners have received the draft assessment, and they all have been alerted to the 30-day comment period that we're in right now.
So what do they think is happening? What do the JPA partners, they just know about it? They know all the specifics of what's wrong, and they...
No, not necessarily. But what's interesting on that is some already have a transition plan for our library building that we didn't know even existed. So that each partner in time will have a sit down and go over this in more detail.
Well, I'm just thinking about this from the commissioner standpoint. If any of us get asked by our cities what's going on, I mean, there's been things going on that we haven't been knowing about, I gather. And the public comment period, who's responsible for the public comment period, like getting it out to the public and, encouraging comments and stuff like that? I mean, where is it? Is it on our website, or where does it reside?
I can answer that. A physical copy was sent to all of the library branches. We also have links on our website to the plan. And that was sent out, I believe July 31st was, or not July 30th, June 30th was when we sent this information out for the 30-day comment period.
And does that require publication in local newspapers so people know about it, that they can comment?
No, there's not a requirement to have public notice. Now, this meeting, there would have been a public notice for. And so people have a chance to attend this meeting to make comments or listen to the presentation. But it just needs to be available, and putting it on your website is an acceptable way of publicizing the transition plan.
So this, if we consider this the public notice, then it's 30 days from today.
No, we posted the materials at the end of June, so that would be 30 days from June 30th.
So it's over? The public comment period is over?
Well, the minimum period is over. The Department of Justice has a 30-day minimum. That's why I was saying we don't want to approve the plan tonight. You can at whatever point end the public comment period, but it has to be a minimum of 30 days.
And
Okay.
we talked about it at the last commission meeting. I mean, it was mentioned at the last commission meeting that this was, that this had been distributed. So there has been, it's not just this evening.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Then in terms of the, just to talk in general, as we have David has a question, or Commissioner David.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about the lack of actual notice to the public. Which individual or entity decides how long our public comment period is?
That
Us?
would,
Is it the city?
it's you, basically. As the library, you're putting the transition plan together. And so the only requirement is a 30-day minimum. So you could have a 60-day period through the end of August or 45 days. There's no requirement other than the 30-day minimum.
Well, maybe I could ask Erica. Erica, what's your recommendation here on an extended period of comment?
Well, we have pulled the 2 items off the agenda for the September meeting to be approved then, so we could easily extend the public comment until, until that meeting.
That would be good.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Great.
Okay. But yeah, and again, the public input is part of the process, so that if somebody has trouble getting to a facility, they can make a comment. We had a comment for the city of Tracy recently where there was picnic tables were to be provided on accessible routes, and they said, well, what about shade? We need picnic tables in the shade. It gets hot here in the summer. And that wasn't in the guidelines, but the city of Tracy decided to adopt that qualification that there would be a wheelchair accessible picnic table in the shade available at each park. So you have the opportunity, if people make comments, to change the plan. And then it is really a living document. You could change the plan a year from now. You could get more funding. You could have a city decide to do some work, and then you could change the plan. It doesn't have to be set in stone. It's really supposed to be a living document, depending on the funding that's available or the process that the library is going through, especially with the joint powers agreements. If the cities take on some of these responsibilities, then you can alter your transition plan to show that they're not your responsibility anymore. But we do want to talk just about the libraries. I know you're all familiar with the libraries. I believe there's also a facility at Roseland that we did not review because it's a leased facility, and I think there's been discussions about how long that would likely last, and you don't own the building, and so we did not review that property. But we looked at these 11 libraries. And one of the things that we look at is what amenities are inside the library, because that's really what you want to have access to for someone who's disabled, is have access to the amenities that are in the library. And especially for public, where they're meeting places for book groups or computer use, various things like that. So we want to track things by amenity. And this is, again, we found 686 areas where everything doesn't exactly meet the ADA guidelines. And it could be something where the ADA guidelines require a flat slope at a door, and it's 2% maximum, and it slopes at 3%. So it doesn't exactly meet the ADA guidelines, but it still was identified as a barrier. Other areas like the front door to the Santa Rosa Central Library, that's a really steep slope up to the doors, and there's no flat area at the doors itself. So that's more of a concern from a barrier standpoint. But we did look at parking and restrooms, and we had identified $1.9 million worth of costs, combining all the interiors and exteriors at all 11 facilities. And again, that may not all be the library's responsibility, depending on how you negotiate with various cities. And we have given staff the breakdown of interior versus exterior so that they have access to those numbers and can use that in some of their planning. We just divide the work into what we call phases, and a phase doesn't have to be a year. It could be 2 years. We wanted to give you some flexibility from a budgeting standpoint to be able to allocate funds as they're available without being constrained that you have to do so much work by December 31st of that year. So it's phases, but there's not a specific time period to each phase. And these are the phases that are in the transition plan right now, starting out with the Petaluma, Rincon Valley, and Healdsburg as the first phase. And as I said earlier, some of that Petaluma work has already started. I understand that they were planning some repairs and some of the exterior site work was taken care of. Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, looking at the table, Northwest Santa Rosa Library, which is my home branch, 56 barriers. Oh, really? What kinds of barriers could be there that could have 56 of them? It's a fairly small branch.
Yes, it is. And the ADA gets really picky. It could be that a sign on the restroom doors is not in the right place, where it's supposed to be on the strike side of the door at 5 feet high. And a lot of times we see those signs put in the middle of the door. And the idea is that somebody who's as visually impaired can read the Braille to the left side of the door. And if it's in the middle of the door, that's considered a barrier.
Well, let me just follow up here. There's new standards as of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
How many of the Northwest, just using this as an example, okay, how many of the 56 barriers are due to new standards? And how many have been there forever or longer?
Yeah, and I don't have that as part of this meeting. I do know that there is the possibility that they've been there since the building was built, since it's an older structure. And
what's been our problem here? This is not a new program. The AD has been around for 30 years, and we've got a significant number of old barriers still hanging around. Really, that's our problem. And we're right. How come this has been lapsed for so long?
Well, and there's also, as I said, you could have a sidewalk that was installed 5 or 6 years ago and met the requirements, and now it's settled. So now there's a slope to it, or a tree root has raised it up. And so now it doesn't comply because of the tree root or because of the expansive soil meant the sidewalk tipped, and now it's got a side slope. And so that occurs too, that sometimes something can be compliant when it was installed, and because the ground moved a little bit, it's no longer compliant.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Elkins.
This is just a comment for Dave. And it would have been easy to miss this, Dave, but in the packet, starting at page 116, there is an item by item list of all of these discrepancies. And I have to say, I was impressed and blown away by the comprehensive nature of this report. So, Matthew, I'd like to thank you and your team for doing this. It it was staggering to see. The flip side of that is, and I was, perhaps unjustifiably, but I was, a little more concerned about Healdsburg because that's my branch. And, we have 82 violations with an estimated repair cost of about $140,000, which means, the average mitigation per item is about $1,600. It's not that, we have necessarily a lot of huge discrepancies. We just happen to have a lot of things that are not in compliance.
Mhm.
So thanks for providing this information. It was very eye-opening.
Yeah, well, and thank you for reminding me that, yes, it is. If you go to page 122 of the packet, you'll see the Northwest Library, and you can see that there are some curb ramps and parking spaces. And again, those curb ramps or parking spaces may be the responsibility of Cottingtown or the city of Santa Rosa. And that's really beyond our scope to evaluate leases and determine, who's responsible for what based on a lease that may be, anyway, it may be even, you might be renegotiating some of those leases in the next few years.
Commissioner Hauser.
Yes, I'd like to go to the first one, the Sonoma ones on page 116, 17, I think it is, of the packet we have, because there are only about six issues right there. Could you just explain a couple of these, because it's not clear to me exactly what the problem is.
Okay. Yeah, and that's right. I don't know how well you can see what's on the screen, but there's a picnic table that has the sidewalks not 48 inches wide. So somebody that's in a wheelchair, or somebody would have problems negotiating that sidewalk. Somebody who's got a cane because they have a visual impairment would have, the sidewalk is supposed to be 48 inches wide. It's probably 36. The van parking stall where somebody would park if they had a van that area slopes too much. It's supposed to be a 2% slope so that you don't have to lock your wheelchair while you're getting in and out of the car, or if somebody's assisting you with getting in and out, you don't have to worry about them rolling backwards. Or if you've got a walker, you can hold, the walker will stay in place and it won't roll away as you get out of the car. And then there's the aisle markings are not compliant at that same parking stall. There's a set of parking stall markings that are required, and the ones there don't meet that. And then, yeah, so it's that kind of thing. These all appear to be exterior. Yeah, those are all exterior barriers.
Okay, well, I just want to comment because when I saw that, I went over to the branch because it's my branch. It's here right here in Sonoma. And I looked at it and I thought maybe it was the grade in the parking stalls that are marked for disability. And they look flat to me. So these aren't major problems that are going to cause immediate issues, is I guess what I want to make a statement about, that these are things that don't quite meet the rules, but there isn't any absolute terrible thing right away that pops in. The other question I have is, would it be possible to create this list by inside versus outside so that information is readily available, because the lease will have different, a lot of the leases are different depending upon that. So
yes, and from that standpoint, we have everything, and you're looking now at a database of all the costs. We have all of them in a database. The staff can get access to this database. We have all the costs divided out by interior and exterior. And so, yes, that information is available, and we can print out separate Excel files for the staff to use that have, interior and exterior, and then with Excel, they can then use that in their budgeting process.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes, I was trying to get at this, what you just addressed. We need to have that as commissioners also, because we're going to get potentially questions going, what share of this is our responsibility. So I would appreciate having that. Again, the breakdown between interior and exterior. Second question to our staff, do we have completed leases with all of our jurisdictional partners at this point?
We do not.
And we do not have leases with Santa Rosa? Is that correct?
That is correct. And Healdsburg.
In Healdsburg, okay. So again, clarification will be needed as we go forward in terms of responsibility and then what the lease responsibility spells out. So there's some more to work out on this. And then lastly, I'm just a little bit still concerned about this public comment period, mostly because of making sure that the public who visit our library know that they have this opportunity to comment. And maybe because I missed last month's meeting, it was more clear to everybody, but it's not real clear to me right now how someone might know that we have this comment period available for them.
Well, I know that there is a paper copy at each library. I'm not sure if there's signage along with that or how they're displayed, but that's one way that if you just have a sign on the counter at the library saying that it's available for review, that would be a way to encourage people who are using the library to read the document or to make comments.
Mr. Anderson, I have a question. I'm sorry, Barbara, were you not finished?
Well, yeah, I mean, one piece of paper laying on one counter in a library doesn't really, alert our patrons to this opportunity in the same way. It
Right,
may
I
mean
think we can probably expand it. Yeah. Sorry. Apologies for interrupting, but I'm not sure that this is Mr. Anderson's problem. I think it's probably the library's problem to get the word out. Additionally, let me ask a question, Mr. Anderson. My understanding is that that many construction projects don't happen, and many of these things don't get fixed because California law doesn't require it until you're actually doing a construction project. It doesn't require people to fix things. So if the bathroom doesn't work, as long as you haven't done a construction project, they still aren't going to fine you.
Well, the state, again, this is civil rights legislation for the ADA. So the states or the building inspector are not going to enforce it. But if somebody complains, they can go to an attorney and you can be sued for a civil rights legislation under that standpoint.
Good.
So it's really liability from a court case, not something that the building inspector is going to show up, with a violation notice.
Right. And it's very useful for us to have all this information moving forward. Let's see. Commissioner Elkins' hand was up, then Commissioner Cahill, and then Commissioner Hauser.
Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Tom Hauser, just wanted to let you know that in Appendix B, which I alluded to earlier, there is a breakdown by exterior and interior. It's all laid out there. So all that information is in this month's agenda packet. It's separated first by exterior and then interior. So you will see two different places where your branch appears.
Right. And I apologize for the length of all of that, but we wanted to give you the opportunity to see all the data. And there is even more data besides this. Each of the individual library reports have photographs in them and specific lists of not only what the problem is, but what the typical resolution would be.
Yeah. So, and I want to let Mr. Anderson continue with his presentation, but just a comment. Obviously, it's not good news to us to find out that we have, this many instances where we're not in compliance with the code. That said, I feel like I have to emphasize, we've stated our ongoing commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that has to encompass accessibility for the full range of people who use our services. So I'm sorry we haven't addressed this earlier, but we shouldn't shoot the messenger here. Matthew and his firm have they've done an excellent job in really detailing for us the full scope of what we have to deal with. And obviously some of these barriers are more significant than others. We're not going to be able to address them all at once. We're going to have to engage in conversations and probably negotiations with our JPA partners, but we're much better off knowing the full extent of the situation. And I want to express my thanks to you and your team for doing this. It's going to be up to us to take the appropriate action. That's it. Thank you.
I agree, Andy. Good.
Thanks, Commissioner Melton. Commissioner Cahill, you were next, right?
Yes, I was going to make the same not shooting the messenger comment that Andy did.
Perfect.
I guess the only thing that I saw the list for Northwest. I couldn't tell what was really significant or not. I was wondering, is there any simple, inexpensive way to tell us roughly how many of these barriers are due to new regulations and how much are old?
And I think I can work with the library staff on that, because although you're looking at a PDF here, this is really from an Excel document.
Yeah.
And we have documents that identify whether it's the California Accessibility Code, and I can look back and we may be able to sort those Excel files by the type of code and then come up with that answer. So I can work with the staff on that.
Yeah. I do not believe that anything in the Northwest branch is actively dangerous. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much. Before Mr. Hauser, before you say something, Erica's got her hand up, and I think that perhaps she wants to shed some light on something.
Yes. So, as Matthew said, the 30-day period is the minimum. We can extend the comment period however long we think is appropriate. And we can also try to do additional outreach in the community to notify them of this, including, posting something on, our doors, or, sending out an email. There's a number of things we can do to try to increase the public's awareness and get their feedback. So, none of this is, set in stone. And this is really the beginning of the conversation, right? We're having this meeting now. This is the beginning of the conversation, and we can determine when we want to end that period.
Exactly. As Mr. Anderson said, this is flexible. Mr. Hauser.
What I want to say this time is I'd like to have some specific agreement about what Erica is suggesting. The signs and signage, posters, email blast, whatever it is, to make sure that the people in the Sonoma County are aware that if they have any problem, we should let them know, or they should let us know. So do we need to decide on a period for this to go? How long it is and something like that? Do we have to put it off 2 months, or can we come to some agreement tonight that something without actually taking action, whatever staff suggests, would be okay? That's my thought.
I think that is the notion. If staff, I think a staff suggestion, because they're closer to the information and they have been distributing the information. I think we should probably welcome a recommendation from staff. Commissioner Engbarth?
Yeah, a few things. One of them, I agree with what Andy and Dave and everybody's been bringing up so far. And I want to really thank your company for doing a great job. It's good to have all the facts out and know how big the bullet is that we have to bite. So thank you. You did mention something about the individual library reports, and I'm wondering whether a copy of the individual library reports could be sent to the commissioners whose library it is. For example, like Dave getting a copy of the individual report for Northwest, and Tom perhaps getting one for Sonoma, and Andy getting one for Healdsburg, so that as a commissioner, we have the benefit of having the information that our JPA partners may be asking us, and that our own local library staff might be asking us as well.
Well, let's ask Erica. I think that certainly you can see that the commission is delighted to help. That said, I don't think that without the commission and the staff putting their heads together, the commissioners should move forward with all this information before there's a plan in place. What we're trying to do is put an overview together here. And
Yeah, oh,
so
no, I didn't, yeah, I didn't mean
no,
that.
no, I'm clear that you understand that, but I think stray information and stray sections of plans can go awry.
Yeah.
So Erica, what did we get?
So I recommend that we extend it for an additional 30 days, and then we can reevaluate at that time if we need more time.
And do you think you can get some public relations out and communications so that the public hears that we're on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on all of the ways that you can communicate with our public and not just our patrons that we're looking at our facilities?
Yes, and we can
Fabulous.
certainly, Ray is not here tonight. He's at Windsor, but I'm sure that he will agree.
Commissioner Hauser, I think, and then Commissioner Ingbarth. And then we're going to wrap this up and get it back to Matthew.
I'm willing to go to my branch and read the report there. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ingbarth.
Yeah, I think in terms of the target, when we're talking with Ray about getting the information out, would be to get it to the disability rights community, the people that maybe work with people with disabilities, so that it's getting to more of a targeted, in addition to the general public, it's getting to a targeted audience where we might get a reaction from somebody who's familiar with this, because they're working with people that are having to experience
good point
process. So
good point. Thank you. All right, Mr. Anderson.
Sure.
Straightforward.
Again, and we're almost done here too. Again, we have 4 phases that we identified, and they're not a specific time period, but really grouping the libraries based on usage and the staff's long-term understanding of the capital improvement projects that are already planned. So that there were some planned for Petaluma, so that moved up to the top, and that with our recommendations were included in that capital improvement project that's going forward, is from what I understand, or may already have been completed. I haven't been to the Petaluma Library in a few months.
There may be a change in Windsor too, but
Okay.
I'm sure staff will let you know about that.
Okay, and again, that's it is a flexible document, but it's something you want to have that you can refer to, but you don't have to follow it exactly if funding or usage patterns change, or your joint powers agreements want to do something with you and split the cost. You can change these around. And that's really just that it is a living transition plan. It's something that you can refer to from a liability standpoint. If someone says, why haven't you fixed the Windsor Library or the Santa Rosa Central Library? And it's also a way of identifying what the barriers are. As we've talked about tonight, there are some long lists and some big Excel files and a lot of information that the staff can then use to work into the capital improvement plans they have, or in terms of funding applications. If you're looking to increase the library funding in the next few years, this is a justification for why the funding might need to be increased. And that's really just, there are some at the end of the presentation, some ADA resources that are national or local that you can refer to. And then really at that point, it's just questions. And we've been doing a lot of the questions all along. So, and I don't feel like you were shooting the messenger, because we're used to there being a lot of questions and comments on this process. It is complicated, and it is more complicated because it's civil rights legislation, where everything can be interpreted by the courts, or you have flexibility, which means, that there's some minimums, but you can do things at your own pace most of the time.
We so appreciate it. And, you hear the passion of the commission and you hear the passion of the staff. And part of it is we're so delighted that we actually have a little bit of money to be able to spend on things like this that we haven't been able to fix in many, many years. And so I think it's wonderful to have the lists in front of us to really give us the specific picture of what we do have to do and what would be ideal. So we do appreciate your your comments and all of this information. We'll be poring over it for a long time. And as you say, this is not the end. I'm sure we might ask you back. You never know.
Well, that's fine. And I know that it is, sometimes it's not even just disability access. When my daughter was 5, my wife was taking the baby carriage with our second daughter into the central library to get, books, and getting a baby carriage or a stroller into the library is important too, and not just a wheelchair. So a lot of this pertains to more than just what you'd consider the standard to disability access. Great.
We so appreciate it. I think we also have a public comment. If there are no additional, I think everybody has had, not everyone has said anything. So if anybody, last comments from the commission. It's not that this is the last time we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about it obviously in September. Okay, I don't see any hands up. So how about Lisa, I believe we have an email from the public about this.
Yes, we do. As a member of a 2-person household of 2 Americans with disabilities, both of whom use the library quite a lot, I've got a stake in the library's planned accommodations and would like—
Lisa, may I stop you just for a minute? Could you tell us who is writing it before you read the comment, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is from Kathleen. Do you want me to say the last name as well?
Yes, please, as a public comment.
Okay, Kathleen Fatou. And this was sent Friday, July 29th at 1:36 p.m. As a member of a 2-person household of 2 Americans with disabilities, both of whom use the library quite a lot, I've got a stake in the library's planned accommodations and would like to contribute a comment. We are both limited in our reading by library policies. A lifelong voracious reader and academic, I acquired in middle age a neurological disorder that comes with reading disability. My daughter, a young adult, has the same disability, although we are differently impacted. These impacts raise 2 grievances with the library's current policies via our disabilities. First, in the matter of audiobooks, limit on quantity thereof. Once a writer and copy editor, I am now barely able to read print. I do most of my reading via audiobooks. The library has a policy of limiting the number of audiobooks that can be checked out each month. Just now, I was told I had reached my limit for this month. I generally read 15 to 20 audiobooks per month. Sometimes I check out a book and after reading a bit, find it's not my cup of tea. Happens to all of us, right? But for me, there goes one of my precious limited number of reads. Because of the limit, I am forced to purchase audiobooks or try through the painful crackle and pop of bad audio to listen to substandard recordings available free online. Neurotypical library patrons able to read print books have no limit on the number of books they may check out. But because there is a limit in the number of audiobooks I may check out each month, I and others like me, the many people with vision or neurological problems, from the blind to those suffering from long COVID, can't check out as many books as we'd like. Also, fewer books are available in audio, and because the process of requesting that the library purchase audiobooks is not always accessible to me in my times of greater cognitive challenge or general symptom severity, I am not able personally to expand that quantity via my suggestions. I suggest that the library's policy ought to be to purchase a copy in audio of every book they purchase in print, thus offering more equal access. Why not allow us to check out more books per month? And please do try to provide a broader range of books for us to check out in audio form. Second, regarding print books and the limits on checkout duration thereof. My disabled adult daughter, for whom I provide in-home care, is able to read print books and thus has access to a far wider range of reading material. But her disability makes her a slow reader, needing extra time for comprehension. She is highly intelligent, but becomes neurologically exhausted and may find herself rereading a paragraph several times to make sense of it. This means that she may need to renew a book multiple times, even sometimes beyond the usual limit of 3 renews. While we understand that other patrons might maybe waiting for a chance to check out a book she's reading, the policy of denying renewals when there is a hold already takes care of that. Why not allow patrons an unlimited number of renewals as long as the item has not been requested by another patron? Or at least double the number of renewals? I realize that the library needs to clap eyes on a volume from time to time to ascertain that it has neither been lost, damaged, or stolen. But couldn't that be done after 6 renewals just as easily as after 3? It is not only embarrassing, but difficult for us to make special requests for extra time, bringing in a book to check it out again. Not wanting to rock the boat, my daughter has sent back many a book she hadn't finished. Both of us have limited mobility, she being entirely housebound and partially bedridden, and myself being mostly housebound. Getting out to the library is a big deal for me. I can do a lot of other things without leaving home, from grocery shopping to shipping packages to receiving prescriptions, but the library hasn't been able to offer such a service. Recognizing that the cost may be prohibitive, therefore, I ask not for home delivery and pickup service, but for a little more time, please. Financial restrictions may be cited as a reason the library will be unable to accommodate our disabilities. But of course, from the dawn of the Americans with Disabilities Act, financial restrictions have been cited as reasons that ramps may not be built or other types of access provided. If the library is able, as a reasonable accommodation, to meet the needs our disabilities present, which restrict our reading and our lives so greatly, we would have equal gratitude with all other patrons, although probably more because, they don't know how good they got it. I know too that I don't ask this only for myself and for my daughter, but for all the patrons with neurological disabilities, whose numbers unfortunately are increasing as the COVID crisis continues. Restricted as our lives are by our disabilities, we depend on the library for the joys of learning, travel, culture, and other enjoyments that so many abled folks can pursue in ways that are barred to us. I do want you to know how much we value the library as a resource that makes our lives bearable. As you consider the ADA transition plan, please take neurological disabilities into account as much as mobility, vision, and other disabilities. Thank you. Sincerely, Kathleen Fatou.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other public comments? Member of the public? Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Much appreciated.
Okay, yes, and when you do get public comments, we'll want copies of those so we can put them into an appendix we'll add to the final transition plan so you have a record of the comments that were received.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for listening to us and thank you for the opportunity to prepare the report too.
Thank you.
We look forward to talking to you again.
Okay, yes.
Bye now. Okay, we're going to move into section 6, library reports. Erica, any specific you want to call out about the library reports?
Sure. I will say that July was, I was a little worried about July, that it would be a little hairy, but we had a lot of staff on vacation, but it actually turned out fairly well. And we had some really wonderful events. The biggest, of course, was the event at the Hearn Avenue site, the projected site of the new library and the new community hub. That was very exciting. We had a lot of turnout of community members as well as commissioners and staff, in which Senator Mike McGuire allocated $5 million to the new Roseland Library and $5 million to the new fire department. So that was our big event. He also had a taco truck there and a mariachi band. Our Bibliobox was there. So it was a really great event where, I met a lot of people, a lot of new faces, and, I'm hopeful that this is just the beginning of a great relationship. So that was one of our exciting events, and the other one was our unveiling of our Bibliobox at Sonoma Valley Library. I can say that Mike is already working on our next Bibliobox, and that is at Guerneville. And so, we're hoping, to have that installed, in the next several months. And the expectation is, we will have one at all of our branches eventually. So that's our plan. We also applied for some grants. The two of them that were a very quick turnaround. We basically had about a week and a half to submit them. One was for a Open Plus libraries at the Windsor Library. And this is a new service that we're looking to provide to the Windsor residents that will allow them to enter their libraries when the library staff is not there. And it's a process. They will have a code. There'll be an access keypad that they use. They will be vetted. All of the details we are, slowly working out with the California State Library and Biblioteca, who is the vendor who is providing the software for this service. And then we also applied for another technology grant that will allow us to replace some equipment ahead of schedule. And that is using funds that we were already going to be spending. So essentially that will enable us to use our funds for other things. So those were the big ones. We've also applied for another grant, but we haven't heard back about that one yet. So that was July, and it was a pretty smooth transition with Anne's departure. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you. I've been meeting with the commissioners one by one and learning a lot about your backgrounds and your experience. And I look forward to meeting the rest of you.
Thanks very much. The Roseland event was very important and delightful as well. Regarding Windsor, it sounds like it's a radical idea, but the Windsor Library is also very close to the police department. So if there are if there's something that someone is not sure about, we know that we have security close by.
Right, and we do have library staff who are going to go visit San Jose. They have a location that has this, and they're going to do a field trip and talk to their staff about problems they encountered. So we're going to gather a lot of information about how to implement this before we roll it out.
Terrific. We look forward to additional reports. Commissioner Elkin.
Yeah, Erica, first of all, thanks for a great report and for I think a really smooth transition. I appreciate everything you've done to take over from Anne and keep things going smoothly. I had a question for you, really for the staff, and so I don't mean to give you a hard time. And it's on page 35 in the packet, and it has to do with the fact that we had a number of folks who attended the California Library Association conference. And what I'm about to say is not unique to the library, but my experience with conferences like this in general is people go, they get really excited, they're exposed to many ideas, and then they come back and it's business as usual. I saw a lot of interesting topics that were called out here, and I'm just wondering what, if anything, is being done to put into action some of the innovative ideas and thoughts and approaches that people experienced at the CLA conference and were excited about, or is this just going to be like binders sitting on a shelf and we're not really going to be able to leverage this?
Well, normally we would expect our staff to report out about their conference experience in a meeting. So we have regular meetings for our professional staff. So a children's services meeting, an adult services meeting, and any implementation would be part of that. So we would ask them to report out and then come up with a plan for implementing their ideas. And we have a process where we ask staff to fill out a form if there's any kind of financial impact to to their requests, then we, the division managers, all review that to see, you know, with our CFO to see what we can move forward with. So we do expect them to take their ideas and put them into action, you know, as we, you know, as we can, and based upon our available resources.
Understood. And again, not to give you or the staff a hard time, but I would love, you know, in 3 months, for example, I'd love to get a report back to say, you know, of these many ideas, here are 3 that the library decided to act on, and here's what we've done. That would be great to hear. So I would put that out as a request, maybe as a challenge to the team, but I'd like to see, you know, some of this enthusiasm channeled into productive innovation. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, we can do that.
Thanks, Commissioner Elkin. And in fact, I asked a couple of times for reports about what people had learned about, brought back, or were excited about from the Public Library Association conference and from the California Library Association conference, because they were the first 2 conferences in person that the staff was going to, and there was lots of really wonderful information. And I know that our staff is mulling over it and going to be developing new things. So I think your challenge is a wonderful one, and I'll stand right by you, Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you, Erica, for the smooth transition and taking things on as our interim director. I just had I'd like a little more information about the access to the library after hours. Is the concept that screen particular people with a code would be all the way into the library in total, or is this more like, you know, the lobbies and the bathrooms, or just a little more, an idea of, like, you know, what it's actually going to mean? Because I suspect we'll be all getting questions about the concept.
So the idea is they would be able to use anything that's in the public area. You know, so computers, the library, you know, collections, the printer. We will be badging all of the workroom and private spaces so that only, you know, staff will be able to get into those areas. The idea is that the patrons can enter the building when there is no staff, and we, of course, we have to negotiate the impacts with our union about this particular proposal. But, you know, it is that they will be able to have access. And one of the components of this is also security cameras. We had planned in our budget to put exterior security cameras in all of our buildings this fiscal year. This grant is part of the grant. We will be putting interior security cameras, and we will only be turning them on during the period of time in which the public is in the building, and staff will not be required to, you know, and we will turn it off when staff is there, and staff will not be required to review the camera footage unless there's a suspicion of, you know, activity, or we receive some kind of report. The reason why Windsor was chosen was because it is so visible, it is on the town green, and because we have also received a number of requests from the community to specifically change our service hours to mornings, so that people who want to go in the mornings are going to be there. We will only have this, you know, available on the days that the library is open to the public. So, you know, and right now we're just talking about mornings, because we want to see, you know, how it's going to go and how it's going to work before we think about expanding it to other times of the day. And we will also have the period of time that the public is allowed to be in there when there is no staff, because we don't want a situation where, you know, the staff come in at 9 a.m. and the public is there and the staff are trying to get the branch ready to open, and they're being pulled away from their duties by requests from the patrons. So it will be a window of time in which there is no staff in the building. But that's kind of the general idea.
I'm going to remain open-minded. It's a challenge to me, but I will look forward to further reports. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a California State Library grant. So, you know, we are one of, I believe, 10 libraries in the state, and only one of 4 in Northern California. So.
Okay, any other questions for Erica? Terrific. Budget and finance reports, anything we need to talk about there?
Are you asking me?
I am.
Oh, okay. Is Myrna here? Myrna, do you want to present this item?
Sure. Well, the finance committee did not meet on in June, and so the finance committee had only the May report to review, and in August the finance committee will review the year-end report. The year-end closed in July, so the county still allows a couple of weeks into July. You know, the normal year-end closes June 30th, 2022, but the county allows a couple of weeks after that to clean up any adjustments and to pay any straggling invoices that come in. So therefore, the financial systems don't close until late in July. Therefore, the year-end reports are assembled after that. So we're working on year-end reports that will be presented to the finance committee in August. And therefore the commission will see those in their September meeting. The library is well within its budget. They're with revenues coming close within target, and expenditures being well within the budget. And so the library, looking at the May reports and what I've seen with year end, is in good financial standing. We also kicked off the audit process for fiscal year 22, and Presenti and Brinker will be conducting the audits with a timeline to get the final audited financials to the commission in December.
Thanks very much. And truly, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I just wondered if you wanted to just say a few words about the budget and finance. I think we've all been through the end of year, beginning of the year session. So we understand that things are a little, you're busy, and there's not a whole lot going on in terms of the financials for the beginning of this year. So Commissioner Elkind, you wanted to.
I just wanted to say something briefly with characteristic modesty. I think Myrna kind of skipped over the incredible amount of work that she and her team have been doing to close out the last fiscal year. As she mentioned, we did have a finance committee meeting at the end of July. We were only able to review the May financial reports. We will be seeing the year end next month, but Myrna and the team have been working very, very hard to close the books, to make a number of corrections to items that had been posted to the wrong accounts, to prepare us for an audit that will be done on time, and very grateful for all of that work. Big picture, as she indicated, our property tax revenue was almost exactly on target. We came in slightly above the budget. Sales tax revenue, we won't know the final number, of course, for 2 months after the end of the year because we're reporting 2 months late, but indications are that we will receive a little more than we had expected, just a couple of percent. Expenses well within the budget. Myrna did mention to the Finance Committee to our meeting that, at year end, there is an attempt to be sure that items that can be paid are paid. So we may see an increase in expenses in the month of June. But what we're also likely to see are a number of items that were budgeted for the last fiscal year, but that couldn't be spent because of supply chain challenges. And so we're going to have to reapprove those items when she presents a revised budget to us. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up about that. But as Myrna indicated, the financials are very sound, and she and her team are doing a great job.
Thanks very much, as is the Finance Committee. But thanks very much, Myrna. We were delighted with your work here. All right, then we're going to move into any public comment on I should ask for that. Any public comment on the library reports? I don't think we have any members of the public here. Okay. Then we move into commission reports. Does anybody have anything to add to their reports? Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes, thank you. Apologies for not submitting a written report this time. I had not been reconfirmed as a library commissioner, so I by the deadline. So anyway, I wanted to just briefly say that I was out of town in the UK for 6 weeks, and I apologize for missing the July meeting. I did visit the Edinburgh Central Library, which surprisingly enough it really needs a major facelift. So they're going through that. And I also had the great pleasure of meeting Ian Rankin, he's one of the top ranked crime authors. I gave him a Sonoma County Library pen and a magnet clip for the library, and he very nicely held it up and did a photo for us. I don't know if everybody got to see that or not, but anyway, he's a big deal in crime fiction. I did make it back in time for the Finance Committee meeting, which I appreciated Commissioner Elkine's leadership on, as always. And the day after that, I made a presentation to the Runner Park City Council. They had sent me an email while I was overseas going, "You must appear before us the last meeting of July." So I appreciate very much Ray Hawley's efforts we coordinated by email and back and forth and put together a presentation. I really appreciate all your work, Ray. And it went over quite well last Tuesday, and they appreciated it. They thanked me, and then they reappointed me to the commission. So I'm back. Thanks very much.
Thanks. It would be, I'm not sure that Ray is back, but it would be helpful probably for the rest of the commissioners if they saw your report, Barbara, so that it inspires us to go forth and present to our own commissioners and town council, if that would be possible.
I'm happy to share the link. You can watch it.
That'd be great.
I only had a hard 10 minutes. And so it was like cover everything in 10 minutes. And then it was the first time I'd ever actually presented a PowerPoint presentation myself with the clicker and the notes and all that stuff. So anyway, I don't pretend that it's perfect. Being kind of a perfectionist, wish I hadn't made a couple mistakes I made. But anyway, I'm happy to share that link if anybody wants to see it.
Super. Maybe Lisa, if you want to send it to Lisa, or Lisa could send it to the rest of us, that would be lovely. Thank you very much. Let's see. Any other commissioners want to add to their reports? Okay. No change to the Historic Records Commission report. Library advisory appointments. Sonoma Valley Library Advisory Board.
I'd like to make a motion. I move by resolution that the Sonoma County Library Commission appoint Adriel Velasquez to an advisory position of the Sonoma Valley Library Advisory Board for a term ending June 30, 2023. This is a student member. And I'd like to make that motion. If there's a second, that would be great.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, then I'll call the roll. Commissioner Cahill. Commissioner Cahill, I think you're on.
Yes.
Commissioner Elkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Engbarth.
Yes.
Commissioner Heavenridge.
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie.
Yes.
Commissioner Parker.
Yes.
All right. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. You just are recruiting youth members to beat the band, Commissioner Hauser. That's great. And I believe we have someone from the Sebastopol.
Yes.
An appointment for Sebastopol.
I move by resolution that the Sonoma County Library Commission appoint Jack Weiswinger to an advisory position. He's a youth member on the Sebastopol Library Advisory Board for a term ending on June 30, 2024. Jack is a very impressive person. He's entering his sophomore year already at Annalyn High School, already has quite the distinguished career, both academically and in athletics. And is somebody that we're looking forward to having join the lab and developing over the years as a potential leader in the local library and the community.
Super. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right. Commissioner Cahill,
Yes.
Commissioner Elkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Engbarth,
Yes.
Commissioner Heavenridge. Commissioner Heavenridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Parker. Wonderful. And thank you both
Yes.
for recruiting. Thank you, Commissioner Parker, for recruiting young members. We need that. Moving on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion? Does anybody want to remove anything from the consent calendar?
No. I'd like to make a motion to approve the items on the consent calendar to include the July 6th, 2022 minutes of this commission, the Occidental Community Library branch lease extension, and the Searcy Dynex annual contract quote. I move that we approve all three of those.
I second.
Wonderful. Now, were there anybody who wanted to remove something? Tom, you were in so quickly. All right, I don't see any hands. Then we're going to take the vote. Commissioner Cahill,
Yes.
Commissioner Elkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Engbarth,
Yes.
Commissioner Heavenridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Hauser,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Parker.
Yes.
Fabulous. All right. We have no action items by motion. So we have come to agenda item 11, which is items for future commission meetings. And we have a number of those, and I'm sure everyone has some suggestions as well. We're going to be talking about committee assignments, but I hated to move forward with that when we are still missing three commissioners. However, I will ask people if they want to join task forces, and a number of people, for example, want to be on an intellectual freedom or a core values task force. I think that was really something that came out last month. And let's see, policies. Many of us would like to clarify our policies, also ADA issues, and then how to follow up on some of the plans that we're working on right now. The ADA, the facilities master plan. What can we do at the commission level to help move that along? And of course advocacy and probably development. Commissioner Hauser has been kind enough to volunteer to step away from the Finance Committee so that someone else can step into the Finance Committee. That said, I don't want to appoint a fifth person to the committee because that will be a quorum. 5 people will be a quorum because we only have 8 people on the commission at the moment. So we need to be very careful about not violating the Brown Act. Thoughts on, oh, and I'm sorry. I will give a full report on the search for, we're on the search for the executive director, for the library director rather. I reported last month, and I don't think you heard this, Barbara, that an RFP was going out for an executive recruiting firm. So that RFP request is closing at the end of next week. So there is really no progress to report on that, but there is progress being made. All right. Anything, who else has agenda items for the future?
I do. I'd like to have us think about and maybe put on the agendas discussion about funding for the ADA plan and also for the facilities plan. The total amounts of those two projects is going to be significant, and I think it's a good time to start talking with the JPA. Some of our partners are all the partners of the JPA, library staff, community members, commissioners, about developing a plan for addressing the financing for these capital improvements. And
okay,
you know,
we can add that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we next month we are going to be presented, I believe, with the foundation's plan to raise capital, to raise money for the Roseland Library. So we're going to be talking about money quite a lot in the near future. Commissioner Elkin, and then Commissioner Cahill.
First of all, I agree totally with what Fred just suggested. That was an excellent recommendation, Fred. Thank you. I want to be very sensitive about how I bring up this topic, because while it was sparked by the discussion about our ADA compliance, I in no way regard what I'm about to say as being related to a disability. It looks as though at a number of our branches, we will need to make changes to our restroom facilities in order to make them ADA compliant. I think that's very important. Separate and apart from that, and as I say, in no way related to disabilities, I would like us to see what we can do about providing non-gendered restroom facilities for those members of our community who are trans or who identify as non-binary. I think that we may be able to accomplish both goals simultaneously. And again, in the interest of inclusion and equity and diversity, I'd like to see if we can make this happen. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Cahill, I think
Yeah, I'd appreciate a report on the search for new commissioners, especially, excuse me, especially the 2 slots that the county has to fill. 4 years ago, they took until late November to fill the joint Santa Rosa and county slot. This is not a good concept to encourage a repeat performance of that. So if you could just let us know and who's really the obstacle to action here next week or next
Thank
month.
you. And since you're in the neighborhood, I will certainly, we will make a full report next month. Commissioner McKenzie, I can't remember whether it was Commissioner McKenzie, Commissioner Parker, sorry, Barbara. Commissioner Parker, you're next. You haven't said anything tonight.
I know I've been really quiet with this.
That's okay.
Yeah, connection. I just wanted to agree with Fred, Commissioner Engelbarth, that we should have a committee looking at the discussions of funding the ADA and the facilities maintenance plans, how we speak with our JPA partners, and I think giving us a thumb in our back, if you will, to go to those JPA partners to have a message to them about the care of the facilities and how seriously we take it, and that we want to work together.
Okay. Commissioner McKenzie. Commissioner McKenzie.
Sorry, hit the wrong one. I just wanted to play off and emphasize what some comments that other commissioners have just made. I don't think we can wait for, and I don't know that you're intending to wait, I'm not implying that, but some of these ad hoc committees that have been suggested to work on the ADA issues, the displays and banners issues. I mean, some of the things that I ideas that I have submitted and others have. If it's going to be a long time waiting for the other commissioners to get in place, I'd like to encourage the possibility of having these ad hoc committees established and working rather than waiting for months and months. And
I believe I
secondly,
said I was going to do that, but
well, I know you're going to report next time and I appreciate it. That's just maybe a little extra encouragement that, because we all know how long it can take for some of these things to get rolling. And then secondly, an update, since we learned tonight that we do not have leases for Santa Rosa and Healdsburg, an up-to-date report on action for that, for getting those in place. Thank you.
okay. I don't think I can, the finance committee is going to move forward as it is. And I will try to create some task forces, and I don't believe they need to be created at a commission meeting. So I think we can do that. We can move that forward. And I had planned to move that forward even before the next commission meeting. But what I will tell you next commission meeting is how Sonoma is doing and how Cloverdale is doing, and hope that we have good news from those directions. Anybody else? All right, then. I think that it is 10 minutes at 8, and we can call ourselves adjourned.
Great. Thank you,
Enjoy the
Deborah.
rest of the month.
Yep.
Thanks very much.
Deborah,
Bye,
staff.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.